Hello, hello, hello. It's your girl Grace Love, and thank you for coming to my safe place. And yes, I know, and that I know that you know that I know you know that it has been a minute since I have last done an episode. So let me go ahead and catch y'all up to what has taken place over the last, let's say, 3 weeks. So per last time, I was talking about um been there, done that, talking about things that we run across with grief and such like that. And lately, as I was also explaining with having lupus, some of the struggles that I have with it day to day. And the irony is, today is the last day of Lupus Awareness Month as well as Mental Health Awareness Month, which are two awarenesses, topics that are very near and dear to me for obvious reasons as being a lupus warrior and also being a mental health advocate and being a person that had went through and battled and finally have overcome mental health issues. I never really realized prior to actually being diagnosed with lupus that it was, both topics were actually in the same month. Which at first I was like, who would do that, right? But then it made sense because a large part of managing lupus, regardless of what type it is, how drastic, severe it may or may not be, a large part of properly managing your lupus symptoms and the disorder altogether has to do with mental health. Whether it is, are you aware of your mental health? Are you um, actively participating and giving yourself self care? Are you actively loving and respecting yourself and hearing to what's going on mentally and emotionally, or how the symptoms of the lupus may be negatively affecting your mental? Um, and I also realize that there are hardships and how do I say it? Not just hardships, but there are a lot of things a toll is taken on, a lot of people have this toll on them as far as what's going on because of someone that they care about, like the caregivers oftentimes and other illnesses, especially drug addiction or other medical conditions like cancer and such. They often recommend not just the patient, the person that's diagnosed with the illness, to actively participate in some kind of mental health practice, whether it be more self-care, start care, self-care, or talking to a therapist, or having a peer-to-peer support, or joining caregiver program, patient programs. But they also suggest that those close to you, especially your caregiver, definitely join in with having self-care for themselves, journaling perhaps, and also joining um, peer groups where they can get that added support from others who are in similar situations. And that's just medically. But aside from that, with mental health, for those of y'all who aren't new to the podcast or myself and my nonprofit, My Safe Place, mental health is something that we encounter and deal with and may battle with each and every day, whether we realize it or not. When I first came up with the name My Safe Place, it was after coming out of a fog mentally and beginning to understand and learn what boundaries were, and then also implementing those things, but also actually realizing that a lot of other people were unaware of not having boundaries or not enforcing their boundaries, and how that was having a direct effect on their mental well-being. And if you do know, this is great, but for those who are not aware, if you do not check what is going on and affecting you negatively mentally, if you do not put that into check, if you don't go ahead and nip that issue in the bud, it can turn around and unfortunately manifest negatively in your body. That's also why oftentimes a lot of medical practitioners will ask you, well, what's going on with you mentally and emotionally? Is there anything going on in your household that's making you unsafe? How is your stress? What is your stress level? Do you feel very stressed? Do you live in a stressful area? Is it a safe area? Is it a dangerous area? Do you work a high stress job, or is there anything that you participate in a regular basis, either voluntary or non-voluntary, that creates a lot of stress around you and in you? And if the answer is yes, or if they, deem from a questionnaire that you have a lot of stress going on, whether it's of your own doing or not, a lot of times they will tell you to um, treat and deal and unpackage that stress. They'll tell you or suggest certain ways that you can alleviate the stress, because the stress can manifest itself into all kind of different illnesses, unfortunately. And I used to think that's not possible until I saw it myself. Like, for instance, people who have anxiety, oftentimes when things get out of their control, or it's unbeknownst to them, meaning, they have no idea what's going on, they don't have all their information, and because of that, they begin to worry. They can actually turn around and have a panic attack. And a panic attack can actually resemble a heart attack. And for anyone that's ever had an anxiety attack or has witnessed someone else close to them have an anxiety attack, you can possibly attest to what I'm saying. Like, yeah, the symptoms seem like, due to the lack of breathing, not being able to catch their breath, having severe pain in their chest or in their side, maybe, their body being covered in like hives, their skin breaking out, whatever the case may be, that starts resembling, physical symptoms. So there's definitely that as well. And again, as a person who has dealt with both, and learning to manage on this journey of mine, one of the other things I definitely had to learn, like I've said in previous episode, was creating boundaries. The boundaries that I had before, some of them worked, some of they didn't. So it is a constant thing of, doing a self checkup of, okay, where am I at mentally, emotionally? What's going on? Is this plan and tactic that I was using before? Is it still, you know, is it still working? Do we still need to keep this in place? Do I need to tweak it? Do I need to add or subtract to it? Or do I need to go ahead and throw that out altogether and adapt something else? And it's just a part of growing. It's just, I think of it like with goals. I have certain goals for myself, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, financially. There's certain goals that I have for myself. So it's just, with goals, anybody that has had a life coach or some kind of workshop as far as how to reach your goals, you have a kind of like a timeline of what you would like to have done, and by what time. And it's not strictly like, oh my gosh, I have to have this, or I have to be like in this position by this time or before this time. And if I go beyond that time, I'm a huge failure. Absolutely not. And one of the worst things you can ever do is compare yourself to others. It doesn't matter. Do not compare yourselves to others. That's one of the worst things you can do. That is one of the worst things as far as self-love, respect, and care. That person's journey is that person's journey, just like your journey is your journey. So, yes, have a goal. Yes, have a estimated timeline, if you would. Don't let it just be set in stone and be like, oh, if I don't finish this by May 31st, 2025, before 11:19 p.m., that means I failed and I can't do it. No. If you weren't able to meet, the time frame that you thought you would get done, if anything, try to see why you weren't able and see if there's anything that you can do to fix it, or even actually turn around and ask for help and see if it's something that you need assistance with, or is it something that someone could help push you forward. And that is definitely a huge part of having a well status of mental health. And of course, I know there are some people like, well, I keep it to myself because I don't want anybody judging me or comparing me or making me feel bad or talking down to me because they don't understand. And I definitely understand that. And for those who are unfortunately going through that, what I recommend if you do not have a safe place, if you do not have a network, definitely reach out to other mental health organizations, maybe mental health groups on social media, which is a big thing now. There's something that is growing. Maybe a few years ago it wasn't that popular, but they've got Facebook groups for just about everything. Okay. So why not, utilize it for mental health? We use it to keep track of our favorite TV shows or podcasts and to know what's next or to get a recap or spoiler alert or whatever with movies and what's coming out for our favorite celebrities. So why not do that towards our mental health? It doesn't have to be so hoity-toity or so bougie or so, inside the box, this rigid box as you may think it is. And again, that's definitely part of breaking down the stigma of mental health being like, I gotta go see this psychiatrist, this quote unquote shrink, this quote unquote quack, and I lay down on this long chaise, this long chair, and I just put my hands on my chest and I just talk about what happened to me when I was 5 years old. And there's this, person sitting there with glasses and their legs crossed and a notebook saying yes. And how does that make you feel? Like, if you want that, there's definitely, because there's definitely different types of therapy, but there are also more modern text types where you can do virtual nowadays. And yes, it's fully covered by your insurance. You just have to ask, hey, I'm interested in becoming one of your patients, your clients. I just want to know if you have any availability through virtual. I myself have participated in therapy and I have not once stepped inside a physical office. And I've been doing that for the last 2 years, right? And just because you are partaking in therapy doesn't actually mean that there is anything bad or wrong going on in your life. Sometimes you have a therapist or a life coach or, whatever kind of category that you're into, whether it's relationship, children, family, work wise, education, you have a coach, someone you touch bases with, whether it may be once a week, once a month, once every 3 or 4 months, just to check in to see how you're doing. Um, to have a person, maybe sometimes just a soundboard. I know with my therapist, I've gotten to the point where I've been able to become more self aware of what's going on, my part in it or lack thereof, what I need to change to better it or to survive it if it's something beyond my control, and how to keep my head above water as far as feelings. And oftentimes my therapist has been like, it's a good thing that you're really self-aware. You kind of beat yourself, I kind of beat her to whatever it was that she was going to suggest. And he was like, it's good because that means that you are less likely to have a mental breakdown or have a mental health crisis because of that. And if you have had a mental health crisis, it's actually no shame on you at all. No shade, no nothing on you, because many of us have had a mental crisis or breakdown because we just were pushed beyond our breaking point. And there's nothing, it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, right? Like, just admit to yourself when you've done all that you can do and that you need help. Pardon me, y'all. That was my water break, sipping some water, um, which I guess I can flow back into about lupus. So I think I said it before in a few episodes, but her conversation with a good sister friend of mine who also has lupus, who's been dealing with it for quite some time. And we were talking about how our journey started and where it is now. And one of the things we mentioned is how oftentimes people don't know what lupus is. And it's like this big, scary thing that people aren't really aware of, or they don't know how to take it or take us or how to help because it's like this invisible disease, you know? A lot of times people will say, "Oh, well, you don't look sick. You were just having the time of your life 5 seconds ago. Why are you ready to go home now?" And one of the things in another conversation talking about lupus, ironically, the last couple of weeks was people asking questions. And I realized I got irritated with people asking because I was like, I'm not an encyclopedia or a dictionary or Google for that matter. Like, why won't you just ask them or research it on your own what's going on? And sometimes it was a matter of people wanting to know what was my personal take on it. And for anyone out there that's like, yeah, I've asked and I've inquired like how I can help or asked them what lupus is, and a person got really irritated. What I will say is when you live with something every day, day to day, for I don't know how many years, and especially when it has had a huge negative effect in your life, like you've lost your job, your income has decreased, your standard of living is diminished, or you're just whatever it may be. It when someone comes and asks you like, hey, I don't know what lupus is, can you tell me? Sometimes it's not that we mean to react in a negative way or roll our eyes or just be like, go look it up yourself. It's because in explaining what lupus is, a lot of times it can be like reopening a hole, reopening a wound while we're telling. Like, on one hand, I'm grateful for people who genuinely want to know so they can find out how they may help or be there for support. And on the other hand, it's just like admitting that there are parts about this disease that even we ourselves are unaware of. Because there's parts, is the idea of explaining, like, hey, so basically, lupus is my body fighting itself no matter what I do, and having to take a bunch of different pills every day just to, get around and do the basic things that other people may take for granted. And when they ask, um, and let me pause right there and rewind. Even that right there, having to admit that, like that can be a bit overwhelming depending what's going on in their life in that in that moment. And then going on to explain what the symptoms or what the pain feels like or the area that you may get it. Um, if they are experiencing it in that moment and you are unable to detect or notice that they're in pain, that sometimes causes, a little bit of a negative feeling. And again, I'm just speaking for myself, but what I will definitely tell you, what I have suggested, is that oftentimes definitely do not assume just because one person had lupus that everyone has those symptoms and those issues. Every diagnoses show up in people in all kind of different ways, definitely, and that's one reason why I have become more open with discussing what it isn't, how it affects me, what I do in order to prevent flare-ups, or what do I do in the midst of a flare up or aftercare or stuff like that. That is one reason, because I understand that sometimes people are leery of using Google or encyclopedia or WebMD because they don't want to get wrong information, because there's so much improper information out here on the web now, right? Like, we don't want no fake news. We don't want no fake info, right? Where they're basically lying. And I definitely had a person come and tell me, they were like, I'd rather come to you and ask you when you're ready to talk about it, because I don't want to make the mistake and go read something online and I think that's true and then that's not. And then I accidentally, because of the incorrect information that I read offline, I handle you incorrectly. And I totally understand that and respect that. So I think I said it right. Understand and respect that. My apologies, y'all. So for those of us who are going through, whether it's lupus or another disorder or mental health, struggles, whether it may be situational, because there is that. There's definitely, situational depression, anxiety, meaning that you are only experiencing sadness for days or months on end, or anxiety for days and months on end without a break due to a situation in your life. So, meaning, um, you lose your job and you're the whether you have a family or not, you have lost your job. That was your only means of financial support, and you have bills coming up, and you may or may not be the the provider for other people. But even if it's just you, you don't have any kids, a spouse, or even a goldfish to take care of. Losing your job can be stressful to anybody, especially if they were not expecting it and were not prepared, meaning that they already had another place of employment prepared or right there at backup. Some people, sometimes you get fired. Some people, they're like, I kind of saw it coming due to what was going on. It was out of my hands, but I already, landed another job. So I'm not really upset, right? You already see the writing on the wall and you were able to immediately get a job. So it didn't phase you. But for those of us who have lost a job, been laid off, terminated, whatever, had our hours decrease, which is definitely to be added, we may be stressed out because we were banking on making a certain pay based off of working a certain amount of hours in order to pay rent, pay utilities, put food in our house, to get back and forth, whether it's by car or public transportation. You may find yourself really anxious and unaware of what to do, especially for those who, let's say, have worked in a particular position with a particular company for more than 10 years, or 20 years, and they still have some time away from the time that they get their retirement or their pension. It can cause high anxiety. Yet if someone was to turn around and gift them money or give them a job of either the same position or even better position, higher pay, that may eliminate the stress that's going on. And I'm not gonna lie, that one kind of shocked me. I was like, they're situational. And I spoke to a few, not only just my therapist, but a couple other therapists that I had worked with. And I was like, wow. They were like, yes, it's called situational depression or anxiety. Um, because they were like, that's the basic terminology that we use, meaning like if they got a job and they just got some money in their pocket, consistent flow of income, they would actually not be depressed anymore. So that's kind of like the person that's just like, there's often memes on Facebook or Instagram, any kind of social media, like, I'm good so long as I have some money. And I was just like, you know what? There are definitely some people like that. And I'm not gonna lie, I am definitely one of them. So long as my bills are paid, there's food in the house, and I'm able to get back and forth, and me and my kids are good, I'm good. But the minute one of those become questionable, that it's no longer a definite yes, I do have to stop and go, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And in the past, I might have stressed out, like, oh, what I'm going to do. I got this to do. I got this. I got to pay that, and I got to pay this. You know, Mama needs a house, baby needs some shoes, kind of thing going on. It's definitely something. And I used to go into this deep hole and not quite panic to the point that I wasn't able to breathe or I would pass out, but I definitely would get a headache. I would definitely create a headache, unfortunately. So I definitely get it, but also realize there are some people who may not be able to relate to you because that's not what they have going on, or they have been blessed to have um, job security. But on the other hand, for those of y'all that have job security, the best thing I could tell you to do when coming across somebody, especially if it's someone you care about, if you come across somebody and they lost their job and you're like, oh, all you got to do is just get back out there, take your resume and go apply for a job. Oftentimes, there are people who have been applying for jobs every day. They apply for a minimum of like what, 6 jobs a day, or at least one job a day. And they've been doing it for weeks that turned into months, that's turned into almost a year. It can become a bit discouraging, even if you attend every workshop, watch every YouTube video there is. It can be a bit discouraging, especially when you know you are qualified or more than qualified for the positions that you're applying for. Hence why, duh, you're applying for them, right? Um, you saying, hey, yeah, just get out there and apply for this job, that might irritate them a bit. Or asking like, why are they so stressed out, or why don't they want to come out today, or they want to hang out? It's because they're doing their best to be responsible with what resources and finances they actually have. Like, yes, it would be great to go just, go all out like the Pitbull song. Like, I knew how did it go? I knew about a week ago my rent was gonna be late. And it was, I don't want to say some of the cuss words, but basically they were saying, look, I don't have enough money for rent, but I got just enough money to get in this club and live my life right and just have the time of my life, right? That was the chorus. It would be easy and nice to do. Is that the most responsible thing to do? Probably not, because you're in a position where you don't know when you're going to get what next. Nothing's guaranteed. And that's definitely not the most responsible thing, even if you're by yourself, especially not when you have people who you're provided for, like children, right? So, oftentimes, those people, they kind of unintentionally isolate, meaning they would like to go hang out, but the way their wallet is set up, so they pick and choose what they can and cannot do, what they should go to or whatever, or better yet, choosing not to do any of that until their finances increase. And something that my mom told me years ago, a real friend, a person who genuinely cares about you, when they see that you are having a hard time, they're gonna ask you what's going on in order to learn how to better help you, and how, even if just to comfort you in your time, and then see if it is possible that they can help you, versus people that will encourage you just to go hang out and spend your what little bit of money you do have, especially when you're uncertain if you will get that back, or another set of another, I want to say another set of income, but yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Might sound weird, so excuse me. It's just, it's definitely a journey, even mental health wise. And I'm so glad nowadays that even though there's still a little bit of stigma, there's still a bit of, oh, I don't know, I don't want to talk about going to a therapist or mental health services. It's not as bad as it used to be. Definitely grown up. And I'm 38 now. My bad, brain fart. I'm 38 now. And I can tell you, the conversations we have nowadays, even in general, even a podcast, hearing it on the radio, having a podcast focused around mental health and the resources, that was unheard of in the 80s, the 90s, and even the early 2000s. That was unheard of. That was something that many people definitely made fun of, regardless of your ethnic background. It didn't matter if you were white, black, Latino, Hispanic. It was like, you want me to do what? I don't know. It definitely not having a life coach or a therapist to help you, stay on track, or to make you realize how on track you really are. What? That was kind of like unheard of in the lower middle class. That was considered like a rich person's thing, right? But nowadays, to see that mental health conversations, like online mental health services being provided and actually being free and actually being covered by your insurance, whether you have um, a big time name, or even like, for lack of better words, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, whoever, or even if you got Medicaid, state approved, medical assistance, you are still able to actually have it. So there is definitely there's definitely been some improvements. There have definitely been some improvements with mental health, and I'm so glad. I'm definitely glad. It's definitely something, honestly, like I said, if you would have told me that we would be here in this point, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed it at all. And the irony just now. So I actually just took another water break. Um, went to apologize for having to take a break and watering just now. And then I realized I needed that. And that is something that is really big when it comes to mental health and being able to manage different disorders, whether it may be lupus, cancer, fibromyalgia, whatever it may be, or even if you don't have a physical disorder, thank God, knowing when you need to take a break, knowing when you just need a minute or a few seconds to yourself, to refill yourself, shoot, even if it's to hydrate, knowing when you need to take a break and then actually taking a break, because knowing and not doing, like, it's a good thing you know this, but you not doing doesn't fix the problem. But to know you need to take a break and to actually take a break, sometimes that is one of the biggest changes, positive changes that you can put into your life that will better you mentally, emotionally, and physically. Because a lot of times we run into disorders or ailments, and injuries due to overdoing it, thinking like, no, I'm just going to keep pushing through. I'm just going to keep pushing through. And like I said before, I think I talked about the migraine aurora. So charge to my head, not my heart if I forget. A huge part of migraines, whether it's just like, migraines that you could just take something over the counter, or migraines to the point like migraine aurora where you feel like you're in Space Mountain. A huge part of that is knowing when to take a break. For instance, when an episode happens to a person, right? If they were to stop what they were doing physically, right? And if they would do their best to, like, take in a few deep breaths, inhale on 3 seconds, exhale on two, or vice versa, or just deep breaths in general, to walk away from the computer or the phone, whatever, again, whatever they may do, listen to some tranquil music. If they were able to take a step away and just take some deep breaths and get their heart rate, blood pressure back to a healthy rate, and they did that every time they had a stressful moment or high intense moment or whatever it may be, a large part of their physical pain would stop. If you think about it, if you're getting a headache from thinking about all the things you got to do or all the tasks that are on your plate, what would you think to do to make it go away? To get rid of all the tasks on your plate, or to get at least get help with it, right? Or being able to walk away from it for a little bit, right? So it's the same thing. So we know, a lot of us, we know we need to take breaks. We know we need to tend to ourselves. We know we need to refill ourselves, because if we're complete, how are we supposed to pour into somebody if we're completely empty, right? We know this. And yet some of us refuse because we're on the I gotta get it done now, and if I don't get it done, then it's going to be late, and there might be a negative consequence to it being late, or it might be denied altogether, or we're so worried about if I don't do it, who will? And if I want it done the right way, I got to do it myself. Whatever you may tell yourself, you have to give yourself a break. And I understand sometimes deadlines come out of nowhere, but sometimes you were given that deadline with some time. Like, say, for instance, someone told you something, application, work, assignment, work project, bill, whatever would be due in, let's say, the next week or so. You have time to figure it out, whether to do it in increments, do a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, a little bit here, a little bit there. Um, all right, I'm gonna, or even set out time to finish that product or project all in one. Like, hey, okay, Monday at 2 o'clock to 2 to 5, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna set out time and I'm gonna knock this out, and it'll be done. And that'll be like 3 or 4 days ahead of the deadline, right? Or, all right, I got a bill due next month in the middle. All right, I get paid 2 times before then. All right, to alleviate some of the financial stress, let me pay a piece now, half now and then half later, right? That will stop yourself from being so stressed out, because some of us be like, okay, let me just go ahead and pay it. but now you're kind of just waiting into your next paycheck. Oftentimes, the better thing to do is to break it up into payments so you still have money left over while still keeping your account in the black where you should be, right? So I know oftentimes it may seem easier said than done, but it is possible. And it definitely comes easier with being organized. So, like I said before, even if you have a life coach, just to help you become organized or stay organized or get a planner. Um, and they definitely utilize the electric um, and mobile planners like on your phone, whether you have iPhone or Android. Definitely use those to your advantage to stay organized, to stay on schedule. And I will definitely admit, being on a schedule now, having myself do certain things by a certain time, different days of the week, it definitely has significantly decreased my stress level, and it has definitely stopped me from um, worrying and being anxious about things beyond my control because I have um, the footwork and the paper trail of me doing what I needed to do before deadlines and stuff. And that is definitely crucial for anyone out there looking for resources. Don't wait to the last minute, whether it's rental assistance, help with food, help with education, needing assistance in your class. Don't wait to that last minute to, you get that bad grade or you get that notice or your food pantry and refrigerator is almost completely empty. Go ahead and start taking steps to start knocking out the obstacles little by little. And I know all too well that a lot of the resources out here, one minute they're here, one minute they're not. And meaning like they may have funding today and they might be completely out of their funding by the time you're able to get their money Monday or whatever the next day is that they're open. It's definitely better to inquire and ask for help before it's too late, especially with public resources and organizations, or even be aware of, you know, more than one. So say you get help from this one and a little help from that one, get help from one to two to three or four, however many places that have the resource, rather than hoping and wishing and praying that one particular place is going to have more than enough money to give you in order to fill whatever need that you have. It's definitely something as far as being organized and getting to it as fast as possible that helps. And yes, that definitely means sometimes having to swallow your pride. Sometimes we have to say, you know what? I am having a hard time and I need to just go ahead and bite the bullet and ask for help. The sooner you ask for help, sometimes the better. Because, like I said, there's that time clock as far as how long they'll have resources according to how many people ask for help and how much money that they have to even give out. So, that having been said, if you're a person that has never dealt with that, I'm so happy for you. I think that's amazing. And if you are a person, again, who has never had to worry about where your next meal is going to come or waiting to hear from a job opportunity or prescriptions or medical issues, but yet you have people in your life that you care for, associate with, that are facing one or more of those struggles, there is definitely some ways of what to and what not to say to people. But more importantly, be in a place with no judgment. Sometimes those people know what needs to be done. They know who to reach out to, where to go. Um, and if you could just even assist them getting there back and forth, or even if they've got it far, handled as far as how to get back and forth, sometimes just being that listening ear goes a long way. I know I've been in predicaments before where I knew what needed to be done. I had already did it, and I was just waiting for, the funds to be available or the assistance to be granted. And even though I knew it, I was just irritated that it was taking so long because even though I knew it could take, days up to weeks for it to be done, I also was aware that it could have got approved right then and there and sent out, right? And in that aggravation, people mistook the aggravation for stressing for it to get done when it was just, no, everything's good. I did everything I'm supposed to do. I'm just irritated. I wish that they would hurry up and yada, 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 yada. There were people who thought that I was asking for help when it was just like, no, I'm just need to blow off some steam that I'm aggravated about why it's taking so long when I know it could have been done in a blink of an eye. There's that. Not everybody that talks about the situations are actually has a handout and is seeking help. Sometimes they just are using you as a soundboard. But also those of us, hey, like we said in the beginning, hey y'all, hey, some of us that may not have that network or have that person that we can, openly, loudly vent to without being judged. Nowadays, a lot of us have access to electronics, to phones, and I highly recommend, even if you just open up your notes within your phone or email to yourself somehow, or get a piece of paper and pen and just regurgitate all your feelings, good, bad, or indifferent, onto that screen, email, app, or to that notebook of how you're feeling. That may be helpful. I'm not saying that it'll solve all your problems and make you feel all gooey and butterfly inside, but I am saying that it may alleviate some kind of stress. And you don't have to believe me. Try it for yourself. That is something that nowadays, especially with Gemini and Chat GTP, people are starting to use the apps as great ways to replace or what they think is replacing therapy. I'm not saying don't go see a therapist, but what I am saying, which your therapist might say, begin to journal, especially if you have a health condition. That's one of the things that I've had to learn to do over the years to keep track of my symptoms, good, bad, or indifferent, them increasing, them decreasing, especially as I get new medicine or, you know, um, as soon as I change medicines. And I take those notes with me to doctor's appointments. So actually able to have a firm and accurate explanation of how it is or is not helping. Instead of being like, oh, well, I think, and when you have certain disorders, it's definitely crucial for you to know what's going on with your body and for you to be well in tune with what's going on, good, bad, or indifferent. Um, and as I finished this up, I had to laugh because uh I made this joke to myself. I was like, I should do this the last day of lupus awareness and mental health awareness month. Like again, it's 11:53 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over here on my end. And the irony is, at first, I did not mean to make this episode on the last day. I actually had every intentions to do it like the first day of May. And lo and behold, I had some flare-ups. I had some issues I was still dealing with. And then I had some appointments and meetings that I needed to actually take care of. And there were positive, spontaneous moments where it was like, oh, are you available to meet right now? So, whereas when I would have done the episode, and I laughed because I was like, well, by me taking my own advice, and also because I'm a person that would tell people like, yo, you got to take care of your health, you got to give yourself grace, you got to give yourself self-care, you got to love and respect yourself, you got to give yourself time, and maybe change how fast you think you do things or how long. And in doing so, adhering to that and adhering to, my doctors and my therapists, I actually did not get that done before now. The irony of it, like I took my own I took my own advice and this is how it went down, huh? And I say that to say there's nothing wrong with taking your time. There's nothing wrong with adjusting your speed, your pace. Sometimes you're gonna move fast, quick, and in a blink of an eye, you get everything done, and that is great. That's what's up. And then sometimes you have to take the slower route, break things up in little pieces and segments, and then turn around and ask for help and get granted assistance and actually wait on that assistance before you complete something. And guess what? That's great too. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing something at a slower, different pace from what you used to do. But above all, do not compare yourself, compare your speed, your journey, your goals, whatever, to anybody else because they're them and you're you, and that's the way it's supposed to be, as one of my older brothers would say, right? Meaning you stay in your lane and you run your race or walk your race or get there however you see fit and how it works for you. You might be driving one day, you might be walking another, you might be skipping with joy the next day, and you might be bent over backwards, inching along. However, so long as you have the desire to keep going, because even with that, you might have days where you just sit down in the chair and somebody pushes you along to help you keep going. It's not something you have to do by yourself. So definitely, I highly recommend on this last day of mental health awareness, I highly recommend if you need help, if you want to change, even if you just want another boost, if you want someone to, review your plan and your ideas to ensure that you're moving in the right direction or even push you along and help you get there faster than usual or help you even get it in the first place. I definitely recommend, talking to a therapist or a life coach and utilizing the free resources like, and those that know me, I love talking about NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illnesses. Join their peer groups, go to some of these workshops, these job fairs, and ask them, or resource fairs, and ask them what is it that, you need to do in order to accomplish whatever your goal is. Explain to a person if they have time what your situation is, and you'd be surprised. And just explaining your situation, that they may be able to figure out how to help you with more than what you originally went for. So that is definitely something I encourage people to do. Nothing beats a failure but a try. Every no pushes you closer to a yes. And when you begin to see it from that point of view, again, it may not be right then and there in a blink of an eye, but over time, you'll notice your stress level decrease. You'll notice that you're not as anxious when you start accepting and realizing what you can do and what you can't do and getting assistant for what you can't do or what, you want to move faster. Things will become mentally and emotionally different, and how you are with yourself, how you interact with others, and why not, right? What's the most that you can do? What's the most that you can lose, right? What's the most or the worst thing that can happen? Like, really, asking for help. And I understand some of us are really hard on that, and that's not how we grew up. But just because we didn't grow up asking for help or being taught that it's okay to ask for help, there's no harm, there's no shame, no judgment in changing that idea and that belief and beginning to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not saying that whoever taught you that is such a horrible person or is being disrespectful to them or even the memory of them. You're just acknowledging that you have to do something different for you in order for you to be the best version, the most successful version of yourself. And that's really one of the biggest parts of mental health awareness is being aware of you, good, bad, or indifferent, and then going forward with that information as you will. So I wish y'all the best. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you in about a week. Good night.